This is Vito LaBella. Vito LaBella, fighting for New York.
Hi, I'm Vito LaBella. I'm here today with Ann Korchak, the president of SPONY, Small Property Owners of New York. Ann, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Please tell us about SPONY.
SPONY is the Small Property Owners of New York. We are a volunteer grassroots organization founded back in the 1980s by small housing providers who were interested in advocating for our space in the market. Our challenges are different than many of the large owners, and we needed elected officials and policymakers understand that, and that was the genesis of the group.
So now, mostly your building owners are 6 families.
We have many different sizes. We have plenty of 1 to 4 family home owners, which I'm sure would be, many people in your district. 6 to 10 unit buildings, those smaller rent stabilized buildings, many of our members, fall into that range as well.
Right, so I grew up in a 2-family home. Growing up, we always had someone upstairs from us. It helped mom and dad pay the rent.
Right.
And then later on, when my brother got married, my brother took over the apartment. And so this is very important, and all the regulations that the city council, especially, a lot of local laws, when we talk about this issue, those things, they currently don't cover 2-family homes or 3-family homes. But the city council, the progressive city council, would love to have all of these regulations apply to all rental properties in New York City, irrespective of the number of families.
Yes, there are many local laws that maybe do first targeted towards large ownership or large buildings. Local Law 97 is a perfect example. I imagine in your district there are many, many large co-op buildings that were formerly rent-stabilized housing, and in that peak time in the 80s and the 90s when there were a lot of conversions, the owners of those properties, they're small property owners too, right? It's an apartment, a co-op, they're shareholders in a corporation, but it's still a multifamily building, and they're facing many of the same challenges that those of us who are operating multifamily rental housing face.
So let's talk about Local Law 97, right? Local Law 97 is the green law that requires buildings to meet certain standards. And up until now, they have letter grades, A, B, C, whatever there was. But soon, those grades, those buildings that don't meet the grade, they're going to be fined. And it's not an insignificant amount of money.
No.
It's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes, and for a co-op that is primarily filled with working New Yorkers, middle-class New Yorkers, the budget the costs to cover those expenses are just phenomenal.
So to remediate these buildings, it's millions of dollars in some cases.
Well, it could be tens of millions if you're looking at upgrading the heating and then dealing with the facade and perhaps the roof, and maybe adding solar panels or whatever you might need to do to meet the standards is a very, very difficult challenge.
And that will require special assessments on each small condo or co-op owner.
Correct.
That could be hundreds of thousands of dollars each.
Right.
And where are these people, some of them on fixed incomes, some of them who've been there for years, where are they supposed to get this money?
Right. It's very difficult, and there seems to be a small group of lawmakers that are starting to understand that the ability for these properties to, whether they're multifamily rental or a co-op that might be in your district, is going to be incredibly difficult.
I know in South Brooklyn, District 38, District 47, or the district that I'm running into, District 43, there are loads of these buildings. And when we did surveys, we saw buildings after buildings after buildings that will be impacted by this law. Now there's the Common Sense Caucus in the City Council, great people, I hope to join them someday. And these individuals are trying to delay the start of this law, give exceptions, grandfather in some of these buildings, but it's an uphill battle with the Progressive City Council.
Yes, it is. And they did announce a few weeks back that they would pause the fines if building owners or shareholders, in the case of a co-op, were making good faith efforts to begin the work. But it's a perfect storm right now. Rising interest rates will make it incredibly difficult for any building owner or co-op board to raise the funds that they may need. Soaring inflation we're still dealing with supply chain issues. New York is not a very hospitable city to do work in, so finding contractors that are willing to do the work, comes at a very high cost because it's very, very expensive for any contractor to operate in New York City. The insurance requirements for any person doing any sort of construction is incredibly, incredibly high. Their risk is now being passed on to the shareholders in the co-op or to the multifamily building owner, like members of SPONY.
Right, and it's not like, someone can do a bathroom at their home or upgrade something and not have everything 100%. You have to get architects.
Correct.
You have to get permits. This is a multi-year process.
Right.
And it's incredibly onerous.
Right, and every agency in New York City is dysfunctional at this point.
Yes.
Right? Our buildings are in a landmark district. I mean, we did a facade job several years ago, and the scaffolding went up, and we started the work, and we were still waiting for the sign off for those few things that the landmarks had to do. And it delayed the process, and it kept the scaffolding up well beyond what the timeline was, which came at an incredible cost. The scaffolding was then up all winter, in front of, my front-facing tenants' windows, at a steep cost because the rental of the scaffolding was quite high. And now this year, the city has decided that they're going to fine those of us who have scaffolding up beyond 90 days. If the delays are often caused by city agencies.
Right. Now you had all of these expenses. Were you allowed to pass any of it on to the tenants?
It was pre-2019, that job. I finished it just before 2019, and back then the state did have we called it MCI, Major Capital Improvement Program, where you could amortize the cost of that project and raise the rent. But that program was mostly gutted with the 2019 HSTPA legislation.
Which was a state legislation.
Yes, but most housing laws are generated, out of Albany.
Out of Albany, right.
And then the city council is producing these local laws,
and they're
so
all
we have
hurting
two.
you. Yes, no one's helping you.
Yeah.
No one's making it easier.
No, nothing has been easy.
So what could the city council do to try to ameliorate all of these bad bills?
Well, I think there has to be a body that is more supportive of small businesses, because that's what small housing providers are, small businesses.
Yeah.
So, and like I said earlier, we are a city that is not incredibly hospitable these days to small businesses.
And it's not just the local laws, one, but the other thing was this crazy sanitation crazy sanitation law that they put into place.
Right. Well, there was a few sanitation changes in the last several months.
Yeah.
One having to do with when trash is placed out. So for decades, the trash was going out at 4 p.m. You were allowed to place it out after 4 p.m. So the building super, that was the last thing he did at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. The first thing in the morning, he sweeps and hoses down. The last thing he would do is put out the trash if it was a pickup day, or the next morning. And they recently made it very convoluted. It was very kind of actually hard to understand, and opting in and opting out was also a very confusing process for a lot of people. But now, the trash, if you're putting it out in bags, cannot go out before 8 p.m. So the supers who are working in the buildings, who are already starting their day oftentimes at 6 or 7 a.m. So what are they now, going to work a 14-hour day? Or they leave and then have to come back? My building's on West 71st Street. If my guy lives up on, 181st Street, he's going to jump on the subway and come back. It's not, they're all immigrant, hard-working people. A lot of them young guys with young children. It's really
It's unfair to them.
Yes.
But this doesn't just impact them. This impacts everybody who puts trash out. Right. So I'm walking around my district, and I'm talking to the possible constituents, and an old woman comes up to me and says, "What are you running for?" "I'm running for city council." Yeah. What is this? What is this stuff with the garbage? Yeah. Why do I have to wait and put it out after 8 o'clock? Right. Like the rats know what time it is?
Right, yeah, that's right. We hear that often, right. Yeah.
But this wonderful woman, in a Brooklyn way, she nailed it.
Yeah.
She nailed it. The rats don't know what time it is. It's not like they picked up the garbage any earlier. My whole thing is, I have to gather information. And when I have the opportunity to talk to someone like you with all of your knowledge and all of your information, that just makes me a better candidate and a better citizen. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And hopefully all of these issues, we can find people on the Common Sense Caucus who will help us address them and take care of your needs and really the needs of tenants, owners, and the city itself. Because without us, without small property owners, the city really loses something, loses character, and it loses apartments that could be used to house all of the people we need to house.
Right.
So Ann, thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. I mean, clearly the city is in need of candidates who are going to make our agencies and work for us, right? That's what we need.
Well, I mean, I'm running for city council in the 43rd district. I hope I meet your expectations. I will certainly try to.
All right, best of luck.
Thank you so much again.